a number of years ago, I was in product management, and I was a lone ranger. I had my own product or set of products, and I worked by myself with no team members except for people I worked with in development and services and so forth. And I got very busy. I was just way overloaded and way too much stuff to do, too many things to juggle, and I was dropping things on the floor all the time. So I went to my boss and said, "Look, there's a problem. I'm not doing my job, and I need some help." Rather than suggest some creative way to reduce my workload, I took the most straightforward approach, which is to ask for more resources. And I was persuasive enough that I got authority to hire a person to work for me, and I did. I found a great person, and she was really excellent, hard worker, good learner, just a really good background, all around excellent employee. And she started working with me, and I gave her a bunch of assignments and so forth. And she came to me a few months after she started and sat down and said, to her credit, said, this is really a terrible job. This is probably the worst job I've ever had. And I was shocked because things from my perspective were going great. I thought she was doing a great job. She was helping me out a great deal. And what could be wrong with that? And so I asked her to explain, and she said that I really hadn't given her any role. What I did was gave her things to do, and she really didn't own anything. Everything was sort of, I sort of served it out one piece at a time. And she made another interesting point, which is that the way that it worked out, it seemed like I kept most of the fun things to do, and I let her do most of the less fun things. And so I listened to all that and used my best sales pitch on her and said, I would let me think about it. And as I thought about it, reflected on it, she was right. I took my full plate and I took the least appetizing courses from that and pushed them to her, and really didn't give her any sort of long-term objectives or things she should be doing or any long-term assignments or ownership. And so we came back, and I tried to make those types of changes and move things to her, and I think things got a lot better. But to some extent, the damage may have already been done because, not too long after that, she left the company. And as I've sort of thought about that over the years, I think one of the real lessons I learned from that was it's very hard to have a good working relationship or a good managerial relationship when you have only one employee. Managerial roles should be segmented such that the manager has a much broader scope of accountability than the employee, as opposed to, let's take my job and divide it into two and I'll give you half. And since then, I've had occasion to run into that a couple of more times, usually when people who work for me have asked for the same thing that I ask for. And I've tried to make this point, which is that it's very hard to have a good relationship when you have only one employee, a very good manager-worker relationship. And a couple times I've relented and allowed the person to do that. And quite frankly, the results have been very similar to what I experienced back those years ago. So